What's going on, guys? Steve here with Geek Boulevard. I have officially seen Longlegs, and I'm here to give you my full thoughts on the film. Just keep in mind that it will be delving into spoilers later in this video, but you will have at least 2 chances to avoid them. One being by going to the timestamps that I've embedded in the video down below to skip the section labeled spoilers. It's in all caps, you can't miss it. And the second and final chance will be when I give the warning that I'm going into spoilers now. So if you still decide to stick around, just know it's going to be at your own risk. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed this review, and subscribe to Geek Boulevard, tick the bell, and you can always be notified when I drop new content on the channel. Without further ado, let's get into my review for Longlegs. Longlegs is written and directed by Oz Perkins. It is rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 41 minutes. Main star Micah Monroe plays FBI agent Lee Harker, who is assigned to an unsolved serial killer case that takes an unexpected turn, revealing evidence of the occult. Harker discovers a personal connection to the killer known as Longlegs, played by Nicolas Cage, and must stop him before he strikes again. First off, the main positive I have to give here is not to the main cast or to the directing or the script or anything like that. It's to the marketing team that generated the buzz for this film in the first place. All of the little vignettes that were released, in addition to the various trailers that pretty much didn't really give anything away outside of just what the base plot is leading up to the release of this film, it didn't spoil the movie whatsoever for me, and it still managed to hook me and just made me hungry for more of what this movie's about. That is how you market a horror film, plain and simple. So whoever's involved with the marketing, they need a raise right now. Now on to my other positives, and that is our cast of characters, starting with Micah Monroe, who does a phenomenal job of portraying the withdrawn Lee Harker. She starts out kind of wooden to a degree, and some might not like that about her performance, as it kind of makes it a little bit difficult to relate to her in a way. But by the end, she becomes very emotional, and the reasons as to why she's so withdrawn, while not outright clear at first, it makes sense in the broader context of the plot itself. There are some other notable members of the cast that are not shown in the marketing, or very little of it. Kiernan Shipka from The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina and Perkins' previous film, The Black Coat's Daughter, makes a very effective cameo appearance later on in the film with a very tense and disturbing monologue. Also, positive marks to Alicia Witt, who plays Harker's mother, and Blair Underwood, who plays Harker's boss, Agent Carter. I had to save the best for last, and that is Nicolas Cage as the title character, Longlegs. Cage is the type of actor that goes all in for every role that he picks, and his Cage-isms are just on full display here, but in a far creepier context. He's under a ton of facial prosthetics to make these moments even more unsettling. One of those moments, I audibly started laughing, not because it was goofy, because I was so uncomfortable, and the only reaction I had was to laugh. I didn't know what else to do in that moment. That doesn't happen to me very often, so points for that. I just think that he crushed it as Longlegs. And the tone and atmosphere for this film is really something to just be commended immensely. The very careful use of lighting, I think, was a huge factor in that. And also the cinematography from Andres Orochi, who, ironically enough, did the camera work for another horror film I was actually really disappointed by, In a Violent Nature. But his work here is far better suited for this type of genre, as there are multiple angles and shots where there's enough room in the background for possibly another person to be in the frame, but there isn't. It's just a shot of like a dark hallway where you don't really know if someone's standing there. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. You just don't know. And there are also moments where the main stars walk out of frame and the camera still just lingers on this one area where there's just a lot of darkness, and it stays there long enough for you to start to feel uncomfortable. And it makes you think, is there something waiting in the dark watching me? It's meant to make you feel anxiety, and I felt that in spades watching this. I do think this film was a tad overhyped though. I don't think this film is meant to be scary in the traditional sense, but like I said, it does serve to make you uncomfortable and riddled with anxiety, as there's always something off that you can't quite put your finger on, but you feel it in the pit of your stomach and you don't like it, but yet you can't look away. Now, the marketing does do a bit of misdirection here, as the plot tends to go in a slightly different direction about the halfway mark, so I will get into that in the spoiler section of this video. The twist that happens here is a little predictable, but it wasn't right away noticeable like it was in Maxine, for example. I also think the transition into that part of the film flowed nicely, for me at least. It wasn't jarring in any way. Also, this is definitely a slow burn kind of horror film. It takes its time to get to where it needs to go. So that might be a turnoff for some of you. It wasn't for me. I actually thought it was a nice pace, and I thought it was necessary to kind of build that tension, but it is something to keep in mind. Also, this film doesn't really end in a clear-cut kind of way. It just kind of leaves things hanging, which did bother me a little bit, so that's also something you want to keep in mind before seeing the film. Okay, from this point on, I will be getting into spoilers, so please skip this section if you do not want the film ruined for you. You will benefit greatly from seeing this movie as blind as possible, trust me, but if you're not bothered by spoilers, then welcome. So the second half of the film transitions from a psychological thriller into more of a supernatural horror, as we find out that Longlegs, who has been murdering families for going on 20 years now, is not working alone. He has an accomplice that's been helping him commit these murders, and that accomplice is none other than Harker's own mother, who was forced into killing families with Longlegs in order to spare her daughter from being taken by the devil. Yes, the one and only Satan, who actually makes some dark, horned, silhouetted appearances later on. Longlegs visited Harker when she was just a child, and she has no memory of this. You would think normally because it was just very traumatic for her as a child, but it turns out that Longlegs made a doll very similar to her, basically forced her to forget this memory, and forced her mother into helping commit these acts of murder in order to protect her own daughter. Longlegs has this creepy ability to make these dolls that look very lifelike, but it has that uncanny valley, so like it just gives off that creepy vibe. He makes these dolls about all these children that he meets, and proceeds to have Lee's mother trick the families of these children into thinking that they won these dolls from the church. So they're brought inside, not realizing that these dolls are filled with this great evil, and then this evil proceeds to take over the families into murdering themselves. It becomes a sickness in a way that spreads, and I thought this revelation was a little predictable, but I didn't start piecing things together until that transition started to happen, so I'm glad it wasn't immediate from the opening of the film. With my whole spiel of Longlegs out of the way now, I have to give this film a final score of 4 out of 5. Even if the twist is slightly predictable and the ending rather disappointingly abrupt, with a slow burn that some might not appreciate as much, the atmosphere, the tone, the lighting, cinematography, and the fantastic and harrowing performances from leads Michael Monroe and the rest of the cast, as well as Nick Cage, more than make this film my all-time favorite horror film of the year so far. It's not perfect, but this film still sticks with me and will definitely keep me up at night. But now I want to know what you guys thought of Longlegs. Have you had the chance to check it out yet? What's your favorite horror film of the year so far? Also, what's your top Nick Cage movie of all time? Let me know down in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and until next time, keep it classy and keep it geeky.
Like,